assignment. What you are going to do is you are going to convert your assignment page instead of being very linear the way it is right now with all of the links down the left side. What you're going to do is create two navigation bars, one for your textbook, one for your supplemental, and then you're going to have a series of pull-down menus. And then across the bottom, you're going to do the icon navigation bar. And I don't care what icons you use. You're going to want at least 4. Okay? And they should be links that actually work. And that is the assignment. Now, at first it may seem a little daunting, but it's not actually that bad. So here is what it's going to look like. And I like, the gradients, but you don't have to use gradients on yours. But all of these links work. Now, lesson 10, you're just basically linking back to your original page and your original CSS. Now, make sure before you even start coding anything, right? What I want you to do is copy and paste assignments, HTML, rename the copy and call it assignments V1, V1 for version 1. That way you're keeping your new one and your old one separate. You're going to do the same thing for CSS. You're going to copy assignments CSS. You're going to call it assignments V1 for version 1.css. And that keeps them completely separate. And then you're going to open up assignments.html, and you need to create the nested lists that are required for the main menu and the submenu. And this actually is not going to be as bad as you think, because you have to add a nav tag. Okay, and then you're going to add a UL for unordered list, and that's going to go before your heading, textbook assignments. And you are going to leave that open. Okay, so we do not have a closing unordered list here. And then you're going to add an opening LI with no closing. And this does not need to change. Okay, so the stuff I have highlighted in yellow is what you have to change. So you're going to add your opening unordered list. You're going to add a line here, and it's going to be in front of lesson 2. And then you're also going to need the anchor before and after. And this is a dummy link. Now you might think, why do I need to put a dummy link before lesson 2? It is so that people with touchscreens can push lesson 2 and see the menu. If you don't code it that way, people with touchscreens, they won't be able to operate your page. So it's actually pretty important. So this dummy link allows the touchscreen people to see the menu. So that's the changes you need to make to the code. And for lesson 3, this is all you have to change. So you have to change where it says lesson 3. And you have to make it a line. Basically, you're turning lesson 3 into a dummy link. And then you put in the closing line down here. Okay, so this is your opening line. Inside the line is where you have your nested list or your submenu. And then you close it off down here. So you're going to do that for every single lesson. And if you do it, you're going to end up with something that looks like this. And then here's what your code is going to look like. So here's our section. We added nav. We added an opening UL up here. Okay. And I still have my opening and closing H2. No closing UL yet. Okay. And I've got my opening line. Nested inside there, I have my submenu. Then I got my closing line. Okay, then I've got an opening line with the dummy link for lesson 3. nested inside, I got a submenu, got my closing. Again, opening line, dummy link for lesson 4, submenu, closing. Okay, so it's pretty much the same all the way down. Okay, and then you're going to get to the very bottom. So here I've added lesson 10, which you're going to have to do in part 3. But you've got your opening, dummy link for lesson 10. Here you've got your submenu. Here's the closing. This is where you're going to close that initial unordered list. This is where the main menu closes off. So way up here, here is the opening for the main menu. And way down here is where that main menu closes off. And then we have the closing for the nav and the closing for the section. Okay, and you'll notice that the supplemental section is set up the exact same way. So we've got opening nav, we've got opening for the main menu, and then we still have our H2 heading in there. We have an opening line with a dummy link for lesson 2. We have our submenu. We close off the line. We have our opening line here for lesson 3 with the dummy link, submenu, close off the line. And we go all the way down to the bottom. After we get done with the very last lesson, we have a close for the main menu. We have a close for navigation. And that pretty much completes that second set of menus. You don't have to change the unordered list that contains your links. None of that has to change. So here was what my initial looked like. And so it's not a whole lot of changes that you need to make to this. Okay, if you find yourself changing a whole lot, then you're changing too much. Okay, because there's not a lot of code that you have to change. Okay, at least in the HTML portion of this assignment. Okay, and then for your navigation bar, you're going to set that up just like the profitable business page. We're going to put it down in the footer. We're using the exact same class. Okay, so you can see I've chosen the social media links, but you have all sorts of icons to pick one from. So you can pick whatever kind of links that you want. And then it's just a matter of styling them. And you can actually copy and paste the styling from my profitable business right into your CSS for this page and just kind of adjust the colors. And you can see that I did that. I actually, instead of having a dark orange bar, I wanted a white bar. And I actually made my buttons orange because, you know, I like orange, so have to go with what you like. Now, what the CSS looks like for this, you have 2 assignments that have CSS that is very similar to what you're doing here. Okay, 2 assignments from lesson 10. You've got Acme Horizontal, and then you've got the profitable web page, which I'm calling horizontal menu and icon navigation. So this CSS in here, in this page, has both. Okay, so I would highly recommend taking a look at this CSS, even copying the CSS and adjusting it for your page. Okay, because I think that that would probably be the easiest thing for you to do. Okay, either copy this CSS, and it would be starting with the nav, okay, or going with the horizontal Acme CSS, which happens to be in a separate page, but again, you'd probably be starting with the nav. Okay, so you have a couple of really good examples to work with. to get the CSS for your menus. And if you end up changing too much, then you may want to just put everything on the server and flip me an email so I can look at it. Quite often what people do with this is something doesn't work, and it might very well be that you miskeyed something. And so instead of looking at that, people just start throwing code in, which is kind of the wrong way to fix the problem. It just kind of compounds it. Okay, so you want to be a little careful with that because you really don't need to make all that many changes here. In fact, I will open up my CSS. So you can see here's my nav section. And this is where I get into formatting the menus. And to be honest, I started with that other code. In fact, this icon bar stuff, I pretty much copied and pasted and just adjusted some of the coloring. Okay? And I also did that with this nav section. So as I said, that is pretty much how you should start. And I don't think that this will be that time consuming for you. Okay, so part 1 is setting up those menus. Part 2 is setting up the icon navigation bar. Part 3 is adding the assignment links. And I did give you, an example here of what to add, because when you're linking to the Acme stuff, they are in folders. So it's lesson 10 / the name of the folder / and you can just link to home.html for each one, because that will give you access to everything that's in that folder, basically. And then for your CSS or for your supplemental, you're going to link to the version 1 of your assignments and also version 1 of your CSS. So again, if you run into problems, please email me. Make sure you've got your pages on the server, because I'm going to need to look at them in order to figure out what the problem is. And I think that you will actually really like how your pages look once you're done. The only other adjustment that I made to my page was to the background. And I did change that a little bit, because once I added the menu, my background wasn't quite so wide to begin with. So when I changed to menus, I think it's in here, I added background size cover, and that kind of expanded the background so that it filled the page better. And I would recommend either doing background size cover or background size contain, because those are resizable settings. So if people conceivably were looking at your page on iPad or anything else, your background would still look halfway decent. Okay, and because we're using a flex box, they can still get to your menus. And as long as you put those dummy links in for the lessons, this does work on an iPad or an iPhone, because you can actually push on lesson and see the menu. And again, the dummy links that I'm referring to is this. Okay, so we've got our lessons inside a link, but the link doesn't really go anywhere. It just basically would take you to the same page, okay? But this does allow a touch screen access to your menu. So good luck, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everything that you guys come up with.